Hi, it's Dot from Ink Art Designs. Today we're going to build a scene using Stampscape stamps. Stampscape stamps are based in America and they're designed to be a seamless stamp, which means that you can stamp them side by side quite easily and they just blend in. Takes away all the worry about where you're going to place your stamps. Some of the stamps that we'll be using, I'll just quickly show you. This is Lakeside Cove, a large one. Then we'll be adding Pines and Rocks, that one. We'll be framing it with some leaves, that one. And we'll be adding a moon behind the scene, that's called Cloud with Moon. We're going to put a loon splash stamp in the front, which is a bird splashing in water. Just for a bit of fun. You could put a canoeist or a rowboat in there if you wanted. We're going to add to the cloud with a bit of cloud cumulus. And in the foreground, we're going to use the leafless pine. So a tree with no leaves, just for an extra bit of interest. Okay, we have an acrylic block. I have mounted the stamps onto backing, ease mount backing, which we have at Ink Art Designs. Because I find with the larger stamps, and this one's like the size of my hand, it just makes it easier to stamp. So we're also going to be stamping using two inks. The first one is Distress Oxide Hickory Smoke, because it's not quite so black as what a black ink is. The black ink is going to be India ink, and we'll be using that for the framing as well. All right, so down to the table, and I'll show you how we bring this scene all together. It's nice to twist the ink on. Oxides are great for stamping with. If you've got oxides, have you tried stamping with them? They stamp beautifully. And then on the card, around about there, we'll place our scene. I like to wait about 10 seconds at least, you know, for the ink to transfer onto the card. You're always guaranteed to get a good impression that way. And then release and lift. And this is that first step to our card that we're making. Not too black, just a nice hint of grey. So we'll take that off that stamp block and we're going over to the Pines and Rocks. Remember I showed you the trees with some rocks? And again, that's just hanging off the top of that box. I'll move it down a little bit further. Ink it up with the hickory smoke, tap it out, make sure it's well covered, put the lids, always put the lids back on tight every time you use them. It stops it drying out. We're going to throw some trees and rocks there. So we're adding more shape to the sides of our lake that we're creating. Again, you wait the 10 seconds. That's important. It's something that you can't skip or take shortcuts on. Release and lift. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Make sure you're pressing down in all areas, like that. Allow plenty of time, then release and lift. Take that stamp off there. This is our scene so far. So we've created a lovely little cove in the middle of the woods. So easy, so easy. Now it's time to add the moon. So we'll put the moon stamp onto the acrylic block, twist on some ink and then tap it out. Make sure it's well inked up and the lid goes back on. And we're going to put the moon there, pretty much in the middle. And again, waiting 10 seconds, firm pressure, no rocking and rolling because you can end up with stamping that jumps around and you get your double images. So just hold it steady. Always have one hand on the acrylic block at all times. Release and lift. Now I'm going to turn it upside down and I'm going to put a reflection into the water. Just a faint one, I hope. Yeah, that's worked out nice. So now we have a reflection of the moon in the middle of the water. Pretty cool, isn't it? Okay, we'll put that one aside. Now the cloud cumulus, we need to fill in the sky areas with a bit more cloud. So for this part, I like to just do random stamping, and for that reason I've left no backing, just rubber, so that I can bend it a lot easier. And I'm just going to random stamp all over and add some clouds here and there. I'll show you each step. I'm starting to build up the sky, just like that. Add more ink. Put the lid back on, make sure it's tight, and then bring the sky across. Go back and fill in any gaps that you can see. Oh, we're about halfway across the sky now. Pretty good. That's the way. Bit more ink. Put the lid back on, nice and tight. And then random stamping for the sky. Just like that. And that's our scene. Almost done. But then remember I said we're going to frame it with some black ink. So for that I'm going to use the leaves. Remember, this is the leaves that are hanging down. And we'll have this dripping from the top of the card. All right. I can see that's where the bottom of the stamp is. So I want to make sure that the bottom of the stamp is off the card. Oh, very nice. Like that. You'll be able to see what a difference it makes using the grey in the background. And I'll bring the leaves down that side. So we're starting to frame our scene with a bit more of an interest. And we'll make sure that's where the bottom is. And allow that 10 seconds. Is that 10 seconds yet? I'm not sure. Release and lift. And we'll just bring it down a little bit on that side. So a little bit more ink. Put the lid back on. And bring some leaves down into that area. Make sure that there's plenty of time for the ink to transfer onto your card. Then release and lift. And that's how it's looking so far. I could stop at that point. I could. But I'm going to add some more trees. That's why I thought I'd use the leafless pine. And just put it in the foreground. So the India ink, twist it on, tap it out, lid back on, nice and tight. And we'll just do some random stamping in the foreground. Oops, wrong colour. I went in with the oxides instead of the India ink. So there we go, fix that up. Maybe if I shift the oxide out of the way, then I won't keep grabbing it. There we go, inking it up and into the foreground. And maybe a bit over on the side, just here. And that should do, I think. So this is the scene that we've created. You can see it's a nice hidden little cove. We have the moon reflected in the water, trees in the foreground, which add to our frame. We've used grey oxides and black ink to give it a bit of depth. I'm just going to quickly wipe down the craft sheet because no doubt I'll get that all over me if I don't. Like that. And then cleaning it all off. Okay. Now I'm going to set that with a heat tool. And I'm going to colour it with Distress Oxides. This time I thought we'll just stick to blues. I don't think this card needs much more than that. So we need a bit of blue in the water. And the water goes around there. And just have a look and see where the water is. I don't really want to get the blue onto the rocks. I'm coming in where the sky is and adding a bit of broken china Distress Oxides into the sky area as well. Just going to rub that down, fill in the spaces and go across the top, working my way down. I'm staying away from the moon itself. I'd like the moon to stay white, so I'm being very careful not to blend ink onto the moon. And working my way across the sky, just pale and carefully adding a little bit there. Still managing to keep the moon white. Bring that down there. So this is how we're looking so far. It doesn't take much to lift this card at all. To frame it a little bit more, I'm going in with Faded Jeans just around the border. Working my way slowly around the edge, like so. Bringing it around the bottom. I like to always start on the craft sheet and rotate onto the card. It catches on the edge as well and helps cover up any white edges. Something relaxing about blending. I always find it relaxing. And working up this side like so, and finishing off into the middle of the top, which is where we started. This is how it's looking at the moment. I'm going to go around the edge one more time and just darken it up just a little more. When you add a frame to any cards that you make, what you're doing is you're drawing the eye towards what's in the middle of the card. Stops your eye wandering all over the place. So that's what I heard somewhere anyway. Made sense, so I'm sticking with that. Darken it up. Okay, a little bit more down there. And I'm going to go in and add a little bit more of the broken china to some other areas. Just a touch here and there. You don't have to be too flash. I think sometimes, and I'm guilty of this as well, you can overthink what you're doing. It's all about just keeping it simple. Right, and I think that's probably enough colour. Can you see how the dark blue edges the card? If we wanted to, we could go in with black oxide I'll just find my black oxide, black soot, grab another ink blending tool, I'll just use one of these, take that off and put another one on. And I could go in and add a bit of black to the edge just to frame it a little bit more. It's like the blending tool's just kissing the edge of the card, ever so slightly, but just enough to make a little bit of difference. Oh, very nice. Do like that. There. I think that just finished it off beautifully. I was going to put a bird, the loon splash on there, but I've changed my mind and I'm just going to leave it as it is. The other thing I'm going to do is go in with my white gel pen. And what you're seeing me do is just running it on my hand, make sure that the colour's running, and just adding some little highlights here and there. I like to go along the trees just to make them pop a little bit more. Just get it running. And it shows up a whole lot better in the darker areas of the card. I think I had one that was nearly worn out because I do use them a fair bit. Okay, now we're right. We're just going to go down that tree and add little pops of white and along the branches and over on this one. When I'm adding white highlights, I go down one side of a stamped image, because if the light is shining, say the light's here and here's your object, the light's only hitting one side of the object and the other side is in shadow. So that's why you go down one side with your highlighter. Just like that. You could fiddle away with this for ages. It's very relaxing. I could do the top of the leaves. I could go back in here and put some white bits on the trees. I don't stand out too bad. Just like that. And this is our finished card. Can you just imagine someone in a canoe or in a rowboat? You could put a deer over in the background. Lots of different things. Lots of different things. You could add words to it as well if you wanted to. But I'm really happy with the scene, and it didn't take a lot of stamps. Well, it took a few. But the other thing you can do is buy the sets. So the sets have all the stamps in them, and you can just chop and change and create any scene you want. I just thought it would be fun to grab a few stamps and throw them together, make a scene. That would be a really nice Father's Day card too, when I look at that. Because a lot of fathers, they like to go camping or fishing or something like that. So this is a nice scene that you can use for that. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration. Thank you for watching.